international law. So the international agreements cannot be enforced as such on international corporations. And the second reason why law is insufficient is that states themselves are not liable outside their own jurisdiction. So human rights violations occur in the territory of a state. And when they occur in the territory of the state, they are the responsibility of the state on which territory they occur. They're not the responsibility of states with other types of connection, for example, the states where the perpetrators of human rights are nationals. So this is also a reason why law as such is insufficient. And morality in itself, ethics in itself, without being formalized in a set of guidelines, is also insufficient. First of all, morality and ethical theories are insufficient as basis for legal action. One cannot hold entities or persons responsible for immoral actions as such. If the state wants to hold parts of the state as responsible, the state has to enact other types of obligations than pure moral obligations. Of course, the enactments can be based on moral considerations, but they have to be transformed in a way from pure morality to something else. And also, if we want decisions on behalf of the state, which is what we're talking about when we talk about investments from the pension fund, then we have no established procedure to determine moral obligations. Moral obligations are questions of applying ethical theories, and we know that we have no sort of basic consensus on ethical theories in society, and we have no basic consensus on how to apply these theories to our moral obligations. So morality in itself is also insufficient as a basis of operation of a state fund. This can be different, of course, for private entities. Private funds, trade union pension funds, or commercial financial actors operating in the market, they can base their operations on morality. And they can say, well, we, the trade union, agree on these basic moral principles. Or a financial institution operating in the market can say, these are our moral principles. Invest in us if you choose, or go to someone else if you disagree. But as a state, one does not have those options to operate purely on morality. And then also comes the issue that we have no clear way of distinguishing between morality and politics. Take the exclusions that we have of weapons and tobacco, based on, many would say, moral considerations, but paradoxically then decided upon by the parliament. Well, when did the Storting have monopoly on deciding morality in our country? That's sort of the basic paradox here. We base them on political decisions, but we say that they are moral. So the approach then of the guidelines is a three-tiered approach. We have the shareholder engagement strategy, we have the negative screening strategy, and we have the exclusion of individual company strategy. And these are three branches of the ethical, responsible practices of the pension fund that operate together. The basic thinking is that the main strategy of the fund should be the shareholder engagement. That was at least the original thought. There are, of course, some basic limitations to that. You can never engage as a shareholder to get a company to do things which is outside its main business strategy. You cannot get a seed company to stop producing seeds by engaging with it. That's absurd. No company would say or accept that type of engagement. So if you want to, so to say, influence Monsanto to change its main business field, you have to use other means than trying to engage as a shareholder. You have to use regulation, or you have to have be a majority owner. But you can persuade companies to sharpen up their ethical practices within the main business strategy. The main challenge here is the secludedness, the non-transparency of the practices of the Norwegian Bank. We don't know anything about what they're doing. And this was not improved with the revised guidelines that were enacted a year ago. Negative screening is a possibility. One could say that the Norwegian Pension Fund should not be engaged in companies producing GMO crops or producing seeds for agriculture based on patents. If this should be adopted as a policy of the fund, it would have to be debated and decided on by majority in the Storting. And I think from what we heard today, there are many good reasons why this should be put as an issue to the Parliament, to say that the Norwegian government should not be engaged in investing in companies that monopolize agricultural products through patents. I think that would be a good political claim towards Storting. The third one, exclusion by individual assessment, is then based on the guidelines that require serious or systematic human rights violations, serious violations of rights of individuals in situations of war or conflict, severe environmental damage, gross corruption, or other particularly serious violations of fundamental ethical norms. This, of course, is a much more difficult approach, and it requires then an individual assessment of the company based on an assessment in relation to these norms. To do that, one would have to have deep knowledge, which I myself do not have on this company, and one would have to then show that there is a risk of being involved by the government in this type of violation of basic human rights norms, which is, I think, a thing that a case that could be made. But also here, the main objection is that even the Ethical Council is so secluded and little transparent. We don't know anything about what they're thinking about now. We only know this in a year or two when they choose to publicize their reports. And so this will be my conclusion. I think we should have a basic claim towards more transparency on the actions of the Ethical Council and on the Norwegian Bank. And it's very important to keep up the political pressure on the bank and on the ministry and on the parliament to move in an increasingly ethical, responsible way for the Norwegian Pension Fund. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Hans Petter. And there'll be an opportunity to ask questions or to make comments to Hans Petter's presentation in a minute. I now wanted to invite up onto the stage our four other speakers. And to just ahead of, please go. And ahead of the broader panel debate and discussion that we'd like to have in a minute, to ask each of them to introduce themselves and just to give a very short sort of presentation as to what the key issues here for them are around this subject that we're debating today. And then after that, to open up the floor for a broader discussion, questions and comments and so on. We didn't precisely agree what order we would go in. So I'm sort of looking. I'm going to pick out. And Arild, do you want to kick off, and either come here or stay there? Entirely up to you.
I'll probably go up there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me and everyone else. I represent the Future in Our Hands. We are the biggest environmental organization in Norway. We also work on global solidarity issues. Maybe we even do more work on global issues than on purely environmental stuff.